When the first rumored specs for the Nikon ZF camera were leaked, this is what I had to say about the prospect of a microSD as a secondary card. Dual memory card slots, SD and microSD, and I hope that micro spec is wrong. But anyway. Hi, Ray here with a microSD card option for the secondary card slot of the 24 megapixel Nikon ZF camera. Now, as you may know from my initial ZF unboxing and introductory video, well, obviously the microSD didn't dissuade me from buying the ZF. I only hesitated a day before putting in my order for a lovely sunset orange version, and I took possession on October 24th. You may also know that I've reviewed two other cards from Angelbird, a 330 gigabyte CF Express B card with the Nikon Z9, the AV Pro XT, and a 512 gigabyte UHS-2 V90 SD card, which I tested as a secondary card for the Nikon Z8 camera. I'll link these other videos via the end screen and in the description below. Now, before we test this card, a 256 gigabyte Angelbird UHS-2 AV Pro microSD V60 for both stills and video, let me tell you how I rationalized the use of microSD for the secondary card slot. First, I'm not a stranger to that format. I use microSD for my GoPro camera, for instance, and that was kind of behind my objection. I hate fiddling with these tiny cards with that camera. I'm forever losing them in the adjacent battery compartment or dropping them on the floor. I think anyone who uses microSD can relate. So, okay, Ray, why did you overlook their use with the ZF? Well, the ZF just has so many other things going for it, which I'll flesh out in a fuller camera review after I've used it some more. But suffice to say, it's going to be my walkabout travel camera, and well, not with this lens, of course. And in order to keep the camera slim and compact, I accept that this is one compromise Nikon has had to make. And I do appreciate the possibility of a backup, since SD is the primary card, which is not as robust as XQD or CF Express. So let's see what kind of performance we can expect in various configurations. We have the slots loaded like this. The ZF's primary slot is SD, secure digital, UHS-1 and UHS-2 compliant, for use with SDHC and SDXC memory cards. And we have it loaded with the Angelbird AV Pro SD, Mark II V90 SDXC UHS-2. Maximum read speed 300 megabytes a second, maximum write speed 280 megabytes a second, sustained write performance of 260 megabytes a second. And the secondary slot is, of course, for microSD, UHS-1 compliant, micro SDHC and micro SDXC. And this Angelbird AV Pro microSD is in fact micro SDXC, that's secure digital extended capacity, UHS-2, rated at 280 megabytes a second maximum read speed and maximum write speed of 160 megabytes a second. So this will function at UHS-1 in this slot. Let's see what that means in practical use. For me, that means for use as either overflow or backup. And I'll follow the same protocol as I have in other card tests. Now, keep in mind that, as I've said, this is my travel walkabout street camera. Again, not with this lens. Before this test, I've never used the ZF in burst mode. Like the Z6 II, the ZF is capable of shooting up to 14 frames a second with the mechanical shutter, 30 frames a second with the electronic shutter. But, now bear with me while I attempt to clarify those specifications. According to DP Review, who checked with Nikon, if we're talking RAW, and I rarely shoot anything but, the maximum rate in RAW, continuous high extended mode, is 11 frames a second, and up to 15 or 14 frames per second depending on the use of electronic or mechanical shutter for JPEG. There's also a JPEG only C30 mode that uses a video stream to shoot 30 frames a second. That includes a pre-burst option like the Z8 and Z9. So you're seeing it here along with me for the first time, assuming you haven't done similar tests. RAW to card 1 and the same to the microSD. The first test that I'm going to do is I'm going to target the primary card slot, that's SD, and we're going to shoot lossless compressed RAW. And then we're simply going to set the function of the secondary card slot, the microSD, to just backup. So that'll shoot the same kind of files, copies, to the secondary card slot. And we'll see how many shots we get before things start to choke up. And we'll also be testing, of course, the X-Speed 7 processor that started out in the Nikon Z9, went to the Z8, and now we've got it in this Zf. So let's see how many shots we get. We just happen to have a rather stationary avian subject. Oh, there we go. And it's still processing here, but we got 76 exposures. Not bad. Not bad at all. Let's move on to the next test. Still processing. And how long is it going to take? Come on, X-Speed 7, do your job. There we go. Now, I can't ever see me needing to back up RAW to RAW. So how about a more likely scenario? I'll shoot RAW to the SD and JPEG to the microSD. For our second test, to the primary card slot, we're going to shoot the same thing, lossless compressed RAW, but this time we've got our image quality set to RAW plus JPEG fine star, and that's targeted to the secondary card slot, our microSD, and we'll see what kind of performance we get now with that. Oh, our little birdie's still there, patiently waiting. Doing pretty good. There we go. And we got 88 exposures before things started to clog up there. So, a little bit better performance there. Third test coming up. And this time, we're going to not shoot RAW lossless compressed, because Nikon's own high efficiency star RAW I found to be just as good, and obviously the files are a lot smaller. So now we're going to shoot that high efficiency star to the primary card, and we're going to back up again with JPEG fine star and see what we get. It's weird to hear a shutter after using the Z8 and the Z9 for so long. A real shutter. Okay, there we go. And what did we get? It's still chewing on those files. And we got 120. So really, for my use case, that's going to be as much as I need. This is not going to be my primary like wildlife or sport camera, because I do have both a Z9 and a Z8 that I would pick up for those use cases. But this really, if this is what I've got and I do need to do burst mode, I don't ever use, say, 20 frames a second with the Z8 or Z9. And this 14 frames a second or 11 frames a second, whatever it turns out to be, that's really fine for me most of the time. So I'm quite happy with that. So now let's get on to some video tests. The Zf is a capable 4K video camera. Not my primary video camera. My Z9 and Z8 serve that purpose, and I usually shoot in 8K with those, except when I shoot 120 frames a second, which of course is 4K. But the Zf is a great B-roll and vlogging camera, if you will, and I've already used it in that capacity. It's capable of shooting 4K up to 30 frames a second and 60p at DX crop. 99% of the time I'll shoot 4K at 24 frames a second, and that'll be 10-bit, most often SDR. So I'm going to assume that means I'll almost always be shooting that to the primary SD card, and that card has proved to perform very well in the Z8 shooting 8K. But what if I'm caught out without an extra SD card. Or, admittedly, it wouldn't be the first time I've forgotten to put the primary card back in the camera. So, really, this is the way I'm looking at the secondary slot and the microSD card as a kind of built-in internal storage. Anyway, let's get to the test at hand. We've targeted the microSD card, and I'll shoot what I'd anticipate shooting, 10-bit SDR, 4K. The thing I'll be looking for here, primarily, is how it functions in terms of thermals. Is it going to overheat? After all, those card slots are right next to the battery, in the same compartment essentially. So again, this is a first for me, and we'll wait and see. Now this test isn't being conducted under the same heat stresses of my last test with the SD card, when we had temperatures right in this room in the high 20s. The ambient temperature today is about 20 Celsius. We'll do a short 60p test here. I don't anticipate using 60p, and if I did, well, it would be a short clip. 120, same thing, and I'm not going to test that here. So I'm going to do a video test now, and I've targeted the secondary card slot. So we're just going to shoot video, and we're shooting 4K, 24 frames a second, because that's what I do. And we're going to shoot that to the secondary card slot, that micro SD. And it actually says here that I should get 2 hours, 27 minutes, and 57 seconds. So we're just going to let it roll and see what happens in terms of thermals in particular. It's going to be interesting. First time I've done it, so you saw it first here. And it's, what is it, 20 after 10 here. So I'm just going to let this roll and see what happens. I'll keep an eye on things, see if we get any hot card warnings or hot camera warnings. So I wanted to bring you an interim report. We're just past an hour recording on this, and if you recall, it's we're recording at 24 frames a second, 10-bit SDR, and so that's H265, and we're just over an hour. We're 1 hour and 30 seconds, and there is absolutely no sign of any overheating. No hot card warning. No, we're all good. And as you can probably see, the card battery door is closed and our flippy screen is flipped in. And the camera is just ever so slightly warm. Let's pull that screen out and feel the back here. Yeah, it is warm. The camera is definitely a little bit warm. But the important point here is, you know, I mean, if you wanted to, you could certainly leave that door open and the screen out to dissipate heat more. But no sign of any hot card warning, obviously no hot camera warning, and we're over an hour recording. Now I have to say that I can't ever see me needing to do this. I mean, never say never, I suppose, but I'm always going to be recording video to the primary card slot. And as I said, maybe I might find myself in a position where I needed to move to the second card slot. But I can't see me ever needing to record even an hour with this camera, and certainly not on that micro SD. But it's there and it's working very well. Now, of course, we got a hot, now, if I think back when I was testing the SD card in the Nikon Z8, we got a hot card warning about 18 minutes in, I believe it was. But of course, that was recording 8K. But the same, 24 frames a second, same kind of video, 10-bit SDR. And so for 4K, I really think this is going to be everything that I need. But I will continue on with this test for a little bit longer. Again, we're here 1 hour and 2 minutes. We've got supposedly 1 hour left to record on here. I'm jumping in here with just 6 minutes to go because we've got a very low battery warning right here. And yep, we still got 6 minutes to go. Who knows if we'll get that full whatever it is, just over 2 hours. But I'm very impressed. No hot card warning whatsoever all the way through here. Now, again, let's just check our camera. It's warm but not hot. So that's pretty impressive. And this test has pretty much allayed any questions that I had about using microSD for that secondary card slot. The performance, at least on this card, is great, and the camera itself is done very well. So as far as we're still there. We've got this open now. So yeah, we've still got that red warning as far as the battery goes. Of course, I could have run a dummy battery to V-mount battery, whatever, or could have also used the USB-C here and used a power bank or whatever. But this is pretty impressive. We've now got 5 minutes to go. And I'll come back and tell you if we did get that last 5 minutes. No, we didn't. Like literally just a few seconds after I signed off there. We got about 4 minutes to go. But hey, once again, I don't ever foresee myself trying to record for 2 hours with this camera to the microSD. So not a big deal. And again, if I did, I would use some kind of external power source. One more quick report. As far as that 60p goes, I did a very short test of that, 10 minutes. And of course, that's in DX crop mode. So we can assume similar performance. And I'm not going to do a full hour, 2 hours, whatever, to check that out. Because for one thing, I never use 60p for more than just a few minutes. And rarely at that. So I'm going to leave it there for the 60p test. So there we have it, a super tiny, teensy microSD card for the Nikon Zf. Now Angelbird were kind enough to send this 256 gigabyte card along for me to test with this great new addition to Nikon's Z system. This isn't a sponsored video, despite the alert YouTube requires if anything of value is accepted for a video review. And the fact that there were no other expectations or obligations involved in the collaboration. Now I will add affiliate link in the description, and if you buy via that link, I'll receive a micro commission that'll help support this channel at no extra cost to you. The 256 gigabyte card goes for $100 US, and there's a 128 gigabyte for $50. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please do give it the old thumbs up. And if this is your first time here, please do consider subscribing. We'd love to see you again. Hit that notification bell to be alerted to new content. In the meantime, take care, cheers, and we'll see you later.